council meeting for today, so we're going to start with a prayer, and I'm going to call on Anjum to do that.
Rather than prayer, I'm just going to do some readings from the Quran and Hadith, simply because I know some of you may not be religious, and those of you who are may not worship in the way that I worship, so I want to be inclusive. And the focus today is on poverty. So I'll start. Have you seen the one who denies the religion? So woe to those who pray. الذين هم عن صلاتهم ساهون, but who are heedless of their prayers. الذين هم يراءون, those who make a show of their deeds. ويمنعون الماعون, and deny help to others. They ask thee what they should spend in charity. Say, whatever you spend that is good is to be for parents and kindred and orphans and those in want and for travellers. And whatever you do that is good, God knows it well. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, O God, grant me life as a poor man, cause me to die as a poor man, and resurrect me in the company of the poor. His wife asked him why he said that, and he replied, because the poor will enter paradise before the rich. Do not turn away a poor person, even if all you can give is half a date. If you love the poor and bring them near you, God will bring you near to him on the day of resurrection.
Right, good afternoon. So I'll declare open the council meeting for Thursday, 30 October 2014. And might just start, before we move to items, just with a couple of acknowledgements. So the first one, of course, is that today is the first council meeting for our new Chief Executive. So welcome, Richard. You're in the hot seat now. And you might want to pull your mic down because I'm sure we're going to be talking to you. And we're very pleased to have you on board. The second item I just want to acknowledge is and I hope he is here. Ollie, are you here?
Yes, you
He is. Would you like to stand up then, Ollie, because we need...
Probably not.
Yes, you do. So look, I want to let everyone know that Ollie has been appointed as the commanding officer for the 3rd and 6th Battalion of the Royal New Zealand Infantry Regiment. And he... And from the 7th of December, he will be known in the Army Reserves as Lieutenant Colonel. Wow. Pretty impressive, Ollie. Congratulations, well done. And I do now also want to just acknowledge Councillor O'Leary because she has received her RMA accreditation. Well done, Angela. And also... And wait, there's more. She has also done her governance development program from the IOD and graduated just recently with that. So well done, Angela. Fantastic. Continuous improvement. Well done. All right, I think those are all the public notices. So we'll start with apologies. We've got apologies from Councillor Forsyth and... That's it. Oh, Councillor McPherson, sorry. Yes, so I'll move those. Seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Confirmation of the agenda. The agenda is as is, with an additional item which I'm going to call 7A, which is the item, councillors, you received in relation to the Victoria Bridge temporary road closure, and we'll take that after the river plan item on number 7. So I will move the agenda as is, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Declarations of interest. Okay. Public forum. There's no speakers in the public forum today. Chairperson's report. So councillors, that is item 5, page 5. I'll take the report as read, but I do have a couple of resolutions in that report that I will move. So the first one is in relation to the Waikato Regional Council Middle Waikato Subcommittee, colloquially known as Project Watershed, which is a far more helpful title. So Councillor Leary is going to be the appointment on that committee. So I will move that motion.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councillor Wilson. Thank you, Councillor Wilson.
Councillor Wilson.
Yeah.
To be helpful.
Okay, any discussion on that? All those in favour?
Aye.
Any against? Carried. Next item is at 2.2. And councillors, this is in relation to our representation for the council on the Joint Management Agreement Governance Group for the Waikato River. And you'll recall that we, in this new council, need to appoint new representatives to that group. So I'm going to move those be our representatives, which is myself, the Deputy Mayor, Councillors Gallagher, Forsyth and Mallett. So a seconder from Councillor Pascoe. Any discussion on that? Okay, all those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. And finally, councillors, I will move my report, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Any discussion? All those in favour? Aye. Any against? Carried. Thank you. Right, next item, page 8, is the council minutes. And I will move, they are on page 9. And I will move those as a true and correct record. Seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Any discussion or items from that, councillors? No?
Your Worship, it's just
Yes.
an amendment I think we should make on page 11.
Yep.
Paragraph 3, it's got Mike Rolton Distinction Trust. I think it's
Right.
a Vincentian Trust.
It is.
Yep.
Well spotted. Thank you, Councillor Tooman. So with that correction of the spelling,
Your Worship, just one.
yes.
I'm just... item 1, proposed air burning bylaw. Did Andrew, can you second that?
Yeah, no one else is going to, so I think we better.
Oh, I thought it was strange that Andrew had seconded it. Okay.
Every one of those resolutions on that page I seconded, so I don't know why it wasn't recorded on each one, but.
Just looking at that, that's because they were taken, actually they were taken separately. Yes, you're quite right. And were they moved and seconded by Councillor and Councillor King, all of them, were they? Yep, they were?
Yeah, everyone was.
They were. So I think you're right, because the minutes note, and you're correct that they were all taken separately, I think the minutes should record the mover and the seconder separately. So can you make that amendment? It's just a format amendment, but I think it's an important one, so thank you for raising that. All right, so subject to those two corrections, they've been moved, the minutes have been moved by me and seconded by the Deputy Mayor. So all those in favour? Any against? Carried. All right, next item, item 7, page 20, and this is the proposed Hamilton City River Plan. So we've got Brian Crode and members come forward.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. The report is fairly self-explanatory, but I would like to just make a few comments and say that this river plan has been a result of a significant collaborative effort, I've got to say, involving a group of experts, people, and some of them you have in front of you here, professional people, council staff, and councillors, and some of the team are here today, and they will talk, I think, briefly once I finish this little presentation. And it's really just a show of support to the council, I guess, that the process that was followed, and in my view, it was really quite a neat process. It was a little bit innovative, it was different. These guys did this work pro bono for the city, which is very impressive. They're all busy professionals in their own right, but they saw the need and the opportunity and put their hands up. So that was fantastic. The process we went through was pretty innovative. At times, I've got to say, it was quite intensive, and it was quite intense. But it was always respectful, which was pretty good. There was urgency, and it was always balanced with humour. So it was, in my view, a very fine process that involved a whole blend of people with real expertise. But the guts of it was really that it finally addressed the city's interaction with the river. And it's been an ongoing challenge for this city for many, many years. And what's pretty special about this project is I think we've finally cracked it. For me, there were a few highlights. I've got to say that Wellington Street swimming pool is one of my babies, if you like, and I'm really looking forward to seeing that come to fruition and be well supported. Another thing for me was understanding and respecting the natural environment and the operational requirements along the river. And a key bit of work that was done early on here was a constraints document, and it really was very important to position this work because large parts of the river and the river environment have to be left alone from development. And a key part of the river plan was to acknowledge that and respect that for a whole range of reasons, including operational reasons of Mighty River Town. The strong links, I guess, to the Hamilton icons is really pretty important. The gardens, the walkway systems, and the bridges, really. And the ferry bank as a key destination, I think, is another very, very significant part of this plan and connecting the city to the river and both sides of the city to each other. So it does have a 30-year horizon. It's ambitious. It is strategic in that sense. And I don't think anyone that's been involved is under any illusions that it's going to be easy to achieve that. We have to find the money yet, but that's what a good plan's about. It's grounded, and I think there will be a great deal of momentum from people to assist in finding that funding. Now there's a very clear proposition put in front of them that's well supported by many, many people. Another point I just want to note is the importance of the implementation arrangements around this plan. And you might have noticed when you read through it, there's a project team going to be set up with a specialist project manager that actually reports through to the chief executive. So it's set up a pretty top shelf approach, I guess you could say, straight to the chief executive, who would have accountability back to the council for making these actions a reality. Community feedback, I've got to say, from my point of view, has been overwhelmingly positive. It's been quite extensive to date. There's been lots of opportunities and lots of stakeholder input. We are recommending in the report, you'll see another final round of consultation over November, and that's really to finalise the plan, give all affected people the opportunity to have another input and just make sure it's absolutely fine-tuned. That feedback will come back to the team and they'll consider it very carefully and then make final recommendations to the council on the 11th of December. So that's the overall situation, Your Worship. I just finally like to acknowledge the contribution of the team in particular, the technical group who were just quietly in the background but very, very supportive. Big players, I guess, in relation to the river, very, very important to us. I'd like to, in particular, recognise Jake's. Where is he? Yep, Jacob's work. Back at work first day today, mate. Good on you. And he really has stepped up and done a fantastic job. I know it's been all-consuming for him at times, and he's really risen to the challenge. Craig Brown was our consultant from Hamilton. Craig did a very good job. He was fairly dynamic. He was quite directive, and at times I think he got a few people's hackles up. But we needed his drive to push through and position this thing right at the front and make sure a fresh pair of eyes from a design background was in behind, and that was very, very valuable. Thank you also to the three elected members who were constantly in touch with the project, and I guess finally, Your Worship, for your gentle hand in guiding this thing.
It's novel.
I just invite, if Council's happy with that, any of the members of the working team, if they want to make any comments before we take any questions.
All right, thank you very much, Brian. Yes. Who wants to say something? Go. We can probably hear you from there, Angus, actually. Yeah.
I'm Angus and Kenzie. I think I was quoted in the paper today.
You were quoted in the paper today, yes.
So I'm a local town planner, and I've my background in urban design is really from the UK, where I did a lot
projects there. This is a fantastic opportunity for the city, being New Zealand's fourth largest city. I think it's something that has obviously got a long-term horizon, and it's a big opportunity, but it's also a big challenge. And the sort of way that this is being kicked off in a partnership approach with community professionals has been, a really fantastic model. So hopefully that sort of partnership approach can take forward into the implementation and delivery of this plan as well. Really support, and it's going to require a lot of organisations to push the vision through. But yeah, very, very exciting time for Hamilton, and I personally welcome the integration of that river corridor better with the city, and trying to put Hamilton on the map in New Zealand and internationally as well. So that's where I've been privileged to be part of the group so far, and look forward to maintaining that momentum.
Any other comments?
Mark Watson, architect and urban designer based in Hamilton. Been here 10 years and was up in Auckland for 5 years. But this is my home, my family's here, my business is here, my wife's also an architect. We live in the river. We live down in Jellicoe Drive, Hayes Paddock, for 4 years, and love Hayes Paddock, State House area, and often engage with the river and Wellington Street Beach and down to the High Road. So that was our first introduction to Hamilton. And I've designed a number of houses along the river that engage with the river, and I couldn't understand why people weren't turning towards the river, coming from an outsider's point of view. Second, I've had some other crazy ideas like the Tron Tower, and Waikato Tourist Centre, and all sorts of things done in my private time, but to challenge the norms and to also get it out there. We've been pointing to some of my presentations here before. So I want to reflect on this amazing process that we've been through, because I think it's a great model for how we could do things in the future. For instance, I've involved with the Frankton Group now as well, and I think this idea of collaboration, working with different disciplines, practitioners as well as council, elected officials, it's just extraordinary, because you get the opportunity to work in a group of 11 plus sometimes, and then smaller breakaway groups as well, where you really can drill down, and it feels a lot like university here. So it really gets the pieces going. I just want to reflect on that. It's been a fantastic opportunity to really get the best of any heads. So it's been a unique experience.
Thank you, Mark.
I'm Annette Jones. I'm an architect and urban designer from what I was calling in the group as from up the road. I'm from Auckland and generally been involved in urban design and implementation projects through South Auckland. But my family lives in the Waikato, so it was always a great opportunity to come down and see them on a monthly basis. But the biggest thing for me, just 3 key points, is a very rigorous process. Yes, it took a while. It took the time, and then the number of pages you get that's evidence of all the rigour that was sitting in behind that, and the distilling. It's often less pages takes a lot more time. And one of the key points, I think, is that it's visual, and that's what then makes it accessible to a whole lot of people, young and old, and therefore accessible like the river will be. So those are some of the key points. And I guess the other key point is a lot of the lessons learned from overseas is that all the people that were involved, majority, are from Hamilton, so they're not applied solutions. They really were tested, and there were lots of iterations and testing and questioning, is this right? And I think that will be the robustness of the plan going forward. But it is a framework. It doesn't set down saying this is the way it is. Frameworks are all a bit loose around the edges, and that then now I think it'd be great to we've been the guardians of it, to then pass it on to out into the public, and then for that to have a life of its own.
Okay, thank you very much,
been
Annette.
great.
All right, go Kiri.
Kia ora koutou everyone. Most of you do know me, Kerry Gold, CEO of Hamilton Waikato Tourism. Just quickly to finish and to support my colleagues' comments here. It's hard to believe it is 2 years when I was reading. I can remember the first meeting very well and many of the meetings in between. It has been a privilege to be part of this group and to work with such a talented group of professionals, both the people that have come from outside as well as professionals within the councils. I'm extremely excited about what this plan presents from a tourism perspective. As you know, my role is to promote the city and the region to visitors. And one of the things that Hamilton has always struggled with up until now is what is its value proposition and where does the strength lie for Hamilton in relation to the greater region. In my mind, it sits squarely around the river. So it's fantastic to see that this plan is embracing the river. There's a whole range of projects that will enable the river to come alive, that will attract visitors into our city, that our residents will also enjoy those projects as a result. So for me, I think it is a 3-year strategy. There's some ambitious projects in there, but I think we need to stay focused on that goal, remain ambitious, remain committed and passionate about really bringing this river alive in regards to our city and our region, not just for our residents, but for those potential visitors. So exciting times ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Very good. Right. Jade, did you want to say a few words? No? You're good? All right. All right, councillors, any questions of Brian or the group? Yes, Councillor Mallett.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple of things, Brian. The risk portion of the report, page 23, paragraph 30, 31, 32, doesn't include engineering, construction risk, land stability, water type issues, property rights issues. You've been quite open about the fact that no funding models have been devised yet, so there's no the fiscal risk isn't identified. District planned issues, where are those things considered?
They'll all largely come at the next stage. You'll see for most of the projects require work to be undertaken, so
Yeah.
a project plan or a master plan or a development proposal will be worked up, and that's where all of those issues will be worked through. But at a high level, you know, the key stakeholders, one of their key functions to assist us on the way through were to see if there were any big sort of, you know, big stumbling points. And so Mighty River Power, of course, was very critical, and all the way through when we were looking at the Wellington Beach concept and other developments at Ferryton, we were testing all of the time whether there would be any operational problems in terms of their operations. And Waikato Tainui were the same in terms of their cultural values along the river. So I think that the team at a high level is pretty confident there's no showstoppers there, but yeah, there will be challenges at a detailed level with each of the development sites.
Any other questions, Councillor Mallett?
No, thank you.
Yes, Councillor King.
On page 22, paragraph 28, a budget of $200,000 was allocated to develop the river plan. The plan has been developed within budget and $10,000 remains as seed funding for a project. I would have thought that if a project came in under budget, that money would go back into the general fund. It wouldn't be set aside for a seed money for another project.
I think that was all the intention of the budget, to include some money to get some stuff started. So I think the team would have liked to have had a bit more than 10,000 left over, but that was always defined as part of the deliverables from the project budget, to have some money to actually start some stuff at the end.
Any other questions, Councillor King?
So is that normal to set money aside for a project and then you use the money for something else if we're under budget?
Yes, if you got to the end of the project and it had been completed and there were surplus funds, they would go back and be kept. But we aren't at the end of the project yet.
You know, Councillor King, just to remind you, it approved both the development of the plan and seed funding for an initial project to get the plan underway. So that was actually what we did sign off in the budget.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Okay.
I'm concerned with the amount of bridges that are proposed. We've got a bridge proposed on page 17. We've got a second bridge proposed on page 23. We've got a third bridge proposed on we've got in the writing it's only proposing 3, but every page has a proposed pedestrian bridge zone. And then as well as that, two other proposed to investigate a pedestrian link over the river at Peacocks, and to investigate a pedestrian link Days Park, St Andrews Golf Course. So that's 5, as well as an allusion to others. I don't think the City of London's got that many pedestrian bridges. It's just a lot. I know this is just going up to public consultation, and I intend to support this today, but I hope that that gets a little bit more defined when it comes back to us.
I'm not sure whether it will be more defined in terms of specifics, because a lot more work needs to be done to locate the exact start and termination of those bridges. So the jobs to be done, if you like, and there's a sort of a sequence from those we can get underway early and those that are going to take more time, subject to funding, but also subject to much more detailed investigation, and there will be more consultation involved as part of those propositions. But at this stage, as a strategic plan, it's saying that these are the connections that we think are important to make the plan work. And yes, they are pretty ambitious, but they seem to be critical to bring the river to life and to achieve the objectives of the plan.
On page 41, says projects to commence immediately, and it has different projects there, which, like the Hayes Paddock, the swimming area to begin immediately, and the Hamilton Gardens to complete the 5 gardens, and a new jetty to begin immediately. It appears as though the pedestrian bridge there is the plans to begin for that pedestrian bridge immediately. Isn't the spending money in advance of the long-term plan being agreed to?
What it indicates again is the intention of that study area, and if you look at Ferrybank, there's a whole pile of dimensions that have to be worked up through a master plan, including what any pedestrian connections look like across the river. But ultimately, yes, there's discussions the council still has to have in relation to finalising the LTP, and I'm sure there will be discussions coming up about what funding should be provided into this project, if any.
Thank you.
Any other questions, councillors? No? Okay, I'm going to move the resolution on page...
Sorry, Your Worship.
Did you have a question?
I had a comment, so can
shall we move
take
the-
comments or questions?
Well, I think we'll move the resolution, then we'll go to... Okay, so I'm going to move the recommendation on page 20,
I'll second.
A through D, seconded by councillor O'Leary. So, Deputy Mayor, I'm going to you then.
Okay. Thanks, Your Worship, and obviously big congratulations to the River Plan Group. Thank you very much. It reminds me a little bit of what Tauranga City has achieved with its waterfront development in Tauranga City, and again the boardwalk concept at Mount Maunganui. And you will be amazed what those simple projects have done in the Tauranga City area. And of course, we've talked about the river and turning around to face the river for years, for as long as there's been a city in Hamilton. And I think I've read somewhere that there's a pile of 20 or 30 reports this high, and that's all they've been, reports. And what's exciting about this is that this is an opportunity to turn those reports with the new report, the River Plan, into realistic actions. And I suppose, like our General Manager Brian said, as a child of Hamilton, the Wellington Street beach to me, is the number one project that will define the river plan, because that's been a historic swimming place for generations of Hamiltonians. The difficulty has been, of course, that the swiftness of the river has also made it a little bit dangerous for those who are not good swimmers. So I'm really excited about the concept around the beach, and that's just one of the things that I'm excited about in this river plan. I'm probably a little envious, Your Worship, maybe even disappointed that you didn't select me to work on the river plan, because you preferred Councillor Gallagher and Councillor O'Leary to myself.
Oops.
And I just want to congratulate Councillors Gallagher and O'Leary for their participation in this program. But look, finally I want to come to the point of my discussion today, and that is to thank you, Your Worship, for the visionary leadership that you've shown on the river plan. And I know how much work you've put into this, and I know how much the public has liked what they've seen of the river plan. So I think that this river plan will actually define your mayoralty, along with the garden plan. But we're not talking about the garden plan here. But both of those things, I think that you should take great comfort in knowing that your vision and your leadership on this, along with the members of the River Plan Group, is going to achieve for Hamilton in the coming years what we have been waiting for so long to do. So thank you from me.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, very much. Thank you. Right, any other speakers? Councillor Gallagher.
Couldn't resist. First of all, I want to give a very heartfelt thanks to the River Plan Group, some of whom are represented today, and also to Jake and Brian and the staff team, and also to the technical group as well, because in that group of people, the city has managed, along with our consultant from Australia, has managed to pull together considerable intellectual grunt, but also considerable passion for this city and a vision for the future. Your Worship, it is well known that I, as you would expect as an elected member, have some significant philosophical differences on a number of journeys of travel within this council, and there are still some battles to be had ahead. But this, of course, is not one of them, in that I think that we roughly have a significant consensus in terms of a vision moving ahead. I've made the comment in the past that in terms of the river reports that have been done since the late 1960s, you probably could put them on the floor and they probably would meet the ceiling of Committee Room 1. The good thing, of course, is that we have looked at those reports and we've learnt and got some of the aspects and aspirations from them. Previously, as some people will know and will be surprised to learn, I actually was on the council before a number of years ago with the great Mayor Sir Ross Jansen and also Mayor Margaret Evans. And their vision was very clearly to advance the ability of Hamilton to celebrate the fact that as New Zealand's largest inland city, it was on the banks of New Zealand's longest river and arguably New Zealand's most beautiful river. And I also want to acknowledge that people like Bill Featherston and the Parks and Gardens team and the staff in the past and previous CEOs, we did advance, and a lot of the walkways didn't happen by accident. They came through this chamber, they came through the committee process, and the budget was allocated, and we have actually made incremental progress. But the difference is we've never actually got the big breakthrough, the real difference where the thing tips from a city that still kind of turns its back on a river, the unseen treasure, to the breakthrough when in fact we actually are known as a place with a wonderful river. And my hope and dream is that in 20 years' time, people will say, why do you live in Hamilton? Well, number one, you've got a good expressway link to the city of 2 million up the road, Auckland. You've got a fast passenger train service. You've got excellent education, research, industry, job opportunities, and given the price of housing still in Auckland in 20 years' time, young couples can afford to buy their first house in Hamilton, and they come for that reason, for the job and the environment. Then they like it so much they get to stay. Why do they like it? Because not only is the place vibrant in terms of its arts and its sport and its culture, but it has this beautiful river, which we've now discovered, which we now enjoy. And Hamilton becomes known as this amazing river city, just as Melbourne's known for the Yarra, just as Brisbane is known for its wonderful river frontage. Christchurch is known for its Avon, and even was a couple of weeks ago in Ipswich, where suddenly, and that was a good example of a city that turned its back on a deep cut river like this, and boy, has that whole place, that whole city, transformed itself because it discovered its river. And it also transformed how people think about their city and their community. I would argue this is not one of those luxury nice-to-haves. I would argue that this is actually quite a solid economic development proposition, because people will come and invest and live in a community for a range of factors, but they've actually got to come and live here because it's not bland. And I'd hate us to think that Hamilton is somehow bland. I want Hamilton to have a zing and Hamilton to be exciting. So I certainly want to also acknowledge and mention in this room Margaret Evans's Millennium Esplanade. And I remember as a former MP I was promoting that, and it didn't advance. Now this is not exactly reflective of that proposal, but it takes the ingredients of that proposal in terms of developing a sense of excitement, a vitality and place. The journey ahead will be challenging. It must involve all of our stakeholders. Public-private partnerships are very much part of the mix. Good relationship with Tainui, obviously, and we will have to do some work in the committee rooms and around this table to work about the funding mix. And we're going to have to do, with respect, Your Worship, to my colleagues, some brainstorming. What will work, what won't work. I think, to use the word low-hanging fruit, there's a number of things in this plan that are quite easy to do, which won't rock the budget too much, and we can get on with it. But in terms of the immediate project, obviously the Ferrybank and Roos Development Master Plan, I'm looking forward to getting into that, because I believe that if we can get that right and get the funding for that, that is transformational, and also the other projects that the Deputy Mayor mentioned. So without further ado, let me give heartfelt thanks to all of you in the River Plan Group and the Technical Committee and the staff, part of our team, our consultant from Australia, because do not ever underestimate your role in the history of this city. And I have one further request of you. If Council loses the enthusiasm, please be back at this table to keep that enthusiasm alive. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gallagher. Very good. Any other speakers? Councillor O'Leary?
Thank you, Your Worship. I support what my colleagues, Deputy Mayor and Councillor Gallagher, have just said, and I don't feel like there's too much more to say. I didn't think it was 2 years, this process, but as Kerry mentioned, yes it is, and I do remember the first couple of meetings that we had, and we've certainly come a really long way. This vision, any vision, needs to be clear, and it needs to be so clear that it clearly articulates what the future is going to look like, and I think we have done that tenfold in this plan. And I also want to thank the members of the working group, and your support and enthusiasm has been outstanding, and I know that we're going to be doing more projects like this in the future with partners like yourselves, and you add some incredible value, so thank you, and also thank you to the staff and technical group. This plan will change our city. It will change the way that residents of Hamilton look at the river. It will change the way our people use the river, how they see the river, how they walk beside the river. It will change the way visitors to our city will engage with the river as well. And it has taken 25 years and as many reports. I don't know if they reached the committee room ceiling, Councillor Gallagher, but I share your scepticism on that. But look, I know that the Mayor won't thank me for what I'm about to say, but the work that she has put in on this project, and I again support what the Deputy Mayor has just said, it's quite extraordinary.
Would you like to say thank you?
Sorry. Yeah, it is. And damn it, turn the webcam off. And you are quite extraordinary. And this plan will change the face of the city. And you're to be congratulated. Sorry, I knew I'd do that to you. Thank you.
Right. Councillor Mallett, bring us back to reality.
I'm going to.
Short and sharp.
We're up here. Thanks for that send-off, Ange. That's great. Look, I want this thing to happen.
Brilliant.
The same way I want a Rolls Royce.
No?
Look, and people are going to talk about vision, but I can see some things quite clearly. There are other higher priorities the city has to face, and Her Worship has been very, very vocal in warning us about the tsunami of infrastructure spending that's required. I can see the city rate increases that are being imposed on people. I can see the losses that are being accrued to the city and the ratepayers by previous visionary projects, a la Claudelands Event Centre, the V8s, etc. And I can also see a whole lot of things that the council should not be involved in that are taxing the ratepayers that we shouldn't be doing. If the council wants this to happen, it should do it by way of reducing impediments for the private sector and the philanthropic sector to do the work, but we should not be our input, our financial input should be minimal at most. And as I said before, this is way bigger than Claudelands. This is way bigger than the V8s, and we have proven that we can't do either particularly well. So I'll be voting against it simply because I think it's not. And it's a priorities issue. We have much, much greater priorities than this one.
Okay, any other speakers? Councillor King.
I will be supporting this going out to public consultation, but I do have concerns about some of the aspects of the report, and I haven't just dumped this on you today. I did flag it during the briefing that we had that I was concerned at the cost of one bridge going in. Now I see there's multiple bridges. I wasn't told there were multiple bridges going in when I brought it up at the briefing where I was concerned about the one bridge. I just find it challenging that we need that many bridges for pedestrians when we're still waiting for a bridge to go over to Peacocks to open up that area for our ratepayers to open it up for sections and for the south of Hamilton. I'm also concerned about the Hamilton Golf Club redeveloping down close to the water and on reserve land, and I'm just not quite sure how that would work because they would qualify for the community club's policy of a 88% subsidy on the lease of the land. Meanwhile, club rooms where they are, and then it's proposed that we investigate a medium density development on that site for them, which would put them in a position to sell it off. So the ratepayers, in effect, from the way I see it, would be subsidising, would be freeing up their land to sell to a developer, and for a medium density development at the same time the ratepayer would be subsidising them to move on to other land down closer to the river. So those are my two concerns, and I hope during the public consultation where the public has a chance to come back in, that these things will be addressed and will be defined a bit more clearly. So as I say, I love the concept. I'm just concerned about those two areas.
Okay, thank you. Any other speakers? No? Councillor Wilson.
Your Worship, I'll be relatively brief. Look, politics at times can be incredibly predictable. And I think it would be fair to say that one of the reasons that a river plan or strategy has never got real traction over the last 30 or 40 years is there's always a lot of initial planning and they build documents, and then part of the political arena suddenly balk at potential cost, and they throw all the challenges and the difficulties, and like most politicians, everybody just runs for cover. And I think that is unfortunate, but it explains why, in fact, you probably could stack river plans that this city have paid for up all the way to Committee Room 1's ceiling, and I think we could. I'm going to break with tradition a little bit in the sense that I'm going to say to Her Worship that I think this plan is absolutely tremendous.
Okay.
And we are often political adversaries. But I've always felt that in politics, it's not about the people, it's about the vision, the idea, and the subject matter. And so when something is good, you should be recognised for that.
Thank you.
And this is good. This is real leadership. This is a vision. And you've brought in capable people who have signed up to the vision and have sat down and created a plan that we can do something about. Now, it won't be plain sailing. And we can't actually do it all tomorrow. In fact, we can't do a lot of it tomorrow. And in fact, if we could do 10% or 20% in the next 5 years, I'd be thrilled. But I say this is my last term, so that when I come back to Hamilton, say in 10 years' time, I have a feeling that we will have started on this plan and that we will have taken bite-sized bites and implemented it. And that does mean that the ratepayer and this council are going to have to write some cheques. And I, for one, in the next 2 years, will happily sign off on that, because I see this as no different to investing in a stadium infrastructure, or for that matter, a sewerage plant. It's all part of the fabric of the city, and it deserves our attention, and it deserves our investment. And if we do it, then the private sector are likely to follow along. They're inherently unlikely to be the first taxi off the rank. That's what our job is. It's called leadership. It's called vision. It's called having a goal and setting about and achieving it. And, Your Worship, you've done that. And this council has done this in the past. Look at the hotel. Look at all the knockers we had. But in fact, we had a 4-star hotel. It drove economic growth, and we sold it for a great profit to the ratepayer. So that's a good investment. I think these sorts of things are positive. I, for one, support it. Well done, Julie. Well done, the team. And I'm really pleased to be part of it. So well done.
Thank you, Ewan. Thank you. Right, any other for and against? Okay, I'll just make a few comments. Thank you, councillors, for your fantastic comments, and thank you for your thanks to me. I feel quite privileged about that, and thank you, Ewan, for your kind words. I agree 100% with everything you've said. It has been a long journey. I do want to thank the group. I think we've brought together a fantastic group of people who have brought an exceptional collection of skills together, all of them very different, and collectively they've all gone into this, and every one of those people's got their footprint on this, and it's wonderful. And I do want to especially thank them for, they put a lot of time into this, a lot of time for free for the city, and we should be very grateful for that. So we are. Thank you. I do want to thank you, Jake. I'm going to single you out. You've done an amazing job. And the real job is about to begin, can I suggest, because we've got to deliver it. So that's going to be hard. And Brian, look, fantastic. You actually got it round the bend to get it going, so thank you for that. And Aaron and all your team, you've done a great job. Councillor Gallagher and Councillor O'Leary, yeah, look, fantastic. One of the values of having someone like Councillor Gallagher around second time round, recycled as we call him, is because he brings the past with him. And one of the things I've learnt in developing this plan is you can't plan the future unless you know the past. And that actually is really critical. Because you learn so much from that journey. And Councillor Gallagher was able to enlighten us of all the things that he's gone through in the past when he was on the council that were barriers, as you pointed out, Councillor Wilson, to getting these things off the ground. So I want to thank you for that. And of course, Councillor O'Leary is one of those councillors that does her homework really well and comes along and spends all night Googling and brings them amazing ideas. And I really thank you for that, because you came up with some really good ones. Look, you know, these things are quite difficult, I think, because, you know, these are enormous plans to get together, and because they'll change the city for a generation and beyond, and they are, you know, big things to bring together. But they're even bigger to implement by a country mile, because, as you said, Councillor Wilson, you know, leadership requires us as a council to demonstrate our commitment to the future of this city. And could I suggest that this is the single biggest thing we can do for the future of Hamilton, in my mind, without doubt. Without doubt. And that will require us, councillors, in a month or so, to debate a thing called dollars and whether we have the backbone to completely commit to this. And I am asking you now to do that. We must demonstrate leadership to the city about making this happen. There are many things in this plan that can happen now within existing budgets, absolutely. But there are some big things that will need us and our partners to work together to make this happen. And true leaders take the lead and stand out in front. And that is what we must do to make this happen. I am just so excited. This is going to be amazing. Thank you. Right, voting.
Green button.
It's not on. Let's do it on the voices.
Oh, they've turned it on.
Oh, okay. We better do it on the buttons.
Never thought I was going to do that.
Thank you, Councillor Mallett, for standing true to your convictions. Look, thanks very much, everyone. Fantastic. And thanks, guys, for coming along. Absolutely brilliant. Right, councillors, we are on to the next item. Yes, it is. The bridge closure. Thank you. Okay, everyone. The next item is our additional item, which is about the Victoria Bridge temporary road closure. And Aaron and Jake are here to speak to that. I think it's clear, councillors, what it's about. Is there anything further you wanted to add, Aaron?
Through you, Your Worship, I'll just add that this is the same day as the Round the Bridges run, so this is sort of an extension of many of the road closures that will be in the city that day.
Right, okay.
It does mean that there will be many people around in the city as well that day, so hopefully a good captive audience. And this is a really innovative approach in terms of trying to engage our community, so we're trying to do something different, and
Sounds good.
it should be a good day.
Okay, any questions about the road closure? Or bridge closure?
Just one, Your Worship, if I may. What time is Around the Bridges road closure taking effect from?
I know the Round the Bridges run is in the morning.
Yep.
The exact times, I'm not sure. I'm just wondering if, Chris, whether you know the exact times of the...
I think if my memory serves me correctly, Your Worship, I think it's from 7:30 in the morning.
It's early.
In the morning. I'm just wondering whether or not, and I know what we're trying to do here is to enhance the profile of the project. I'm just wondering whether we're going to get enough people or whether we'd be better off using Victoria Street between the intersections of Hood and Collingwood, where we maybe have more pedestrian traffic than we would on Victoria Bridge. And the other thing is, of course, is once you take one bridge out of the city, of course, it creates a little bit of chaos for the rest of them. That's the only thing.
True.
That's why we need more bridges.
That's why we need more bridges. Yeah.
I think I probably can respond to you. I think you hit the nail on the head, actually, Councillor Tooman, that this is designed to actually engage people with the river, because you'll be looking at the river. And sadly, at the moment, one of the few places you can see the river is on the bridge. And of course, the plan attempts to change that. So yes, you're right. It is about actually, bringing the people to the river. So that's what's behind it. Yeah, but I mean, they're good comments. Did you want to add anything to that, Aaron? Yeah, it will cause some traffic issues, but I see here you've spoken to all the right people and
We have, yes.
they're happy about it.
That's correct.
Yeah, the police are happy, Councillor Tooman, it says here.
Just a,
They're always
Yes,
just a
Councillor Miller.
question. There's a budget allocated amount 200,000 to develop the river plan. Is there a cost in closing shutting a bridge,
There is a
other
cost-
than the inconvenience cost?
Yeah, there is a cost for the traffic management plan,
Cones
which is
and
around
stuff like
$800.
Okay.
$800.
So that 10,000 that was going to seed the first project just dropped a bit, did it?
No, this is the consultation costs are included in the other 190,000.
Oh, okay.
$800 of it, okay.
Can I see the invoices, please?
All right, any other questions, councillors?
Receipts?
So moved by Deputy Mayor, I'm seconding it. Anyone wish to speak for or against this motion? Okay, so we're going to vote on it. We might as well go to the board it's on.
Make your mind up, Martin.
Just green, Marty.
Okay. All right, thanks very much. Thank you, councillor. Right, the next item relates to recommendations from the Finance Committee on page 24.
Your Worship, I'll so move the recommendation.
Okay, thank you. And seconded by
I'll second.
Councillor Wilson. Okay, councillors, I'll put that to the vote on the voices. All those in favour? Are there any against? Carried, thank you. The next one is recommendations from the Strategy and Policy Committee. Councillor Leary, they're yours.
Am I on? Yes, yes, Your Worship, I will move those. Just with an addition to the first one, their proposed open air burning bylaw. But is the Democracy going to pop it on the board? Just in C, I've just added the word hearings in open air bylaw hearings subcommittee, just to be clear there.
Oh,
And-
yes, yes.
Yep, and highlighted. And then in E, the members of the open air bylaw hearings subcommittee to be as confirmed. And I will move those. Move all of those recommendations.
Okay, thank you. Seconded by Councillor King.
Can these be taken separately?
Yes, they can be taken separately. So we'll deal with number one first. So that's
So I'll move, yep.
And seconded by, who's seconding number one? Councillor Tooman is. Does anyone have a question? Or yes?
I just have a question, and it's the bid in quotes, any hangi, umu or similar outdoor fire for the sole purpose of food preparation. Now, I know this is the wording that we've passed. Any fire will have more than just one purpose. I mean, it'll be warmth and illumination and carry on. Would you think changing that from sole to primary purpose would be? And that's, I know I'm what do you call it? Pulling hairs or whatever that word is.
Splitting hairs.
Splitting hairs, thank you. Dancing on the head of an eagle.
Pinhead.
Pinhead, yeah. Or is it not appropriate because we can only approve what's come from the committee? Am I right?
Blair, that was your discussion point last time in the committee. Now, there was a lot of discussion about soul or that word, wasn't there?
No, it was about traditional, wasn't it?
It was around the word traditional.
My advice would be that we would leave it as sole, and we can always address that if necessary back.
After the hearing.
After the hearing
Yeah,
process.
actually, that's.
Oh, okay, it's going into
Submission
hearing.
process,
yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because there might be some submissions on this particular part of the
It could
bylaw.
well be, so I
Yeah.
think it's the best process is to pick that up
Okay.
as part of that process.
All right. So any other questions on this one? Okay, so it was moved by councillor O'Leary and councillor Tooman seconded. Okay, so we'll go to the board to vote.
Can I
Yeah.
just ask, Andrew might vote against this, at the moment, all we're doing is accepting that these were the recommendations that so if you're against the recommendation, it's like approving the minutes, eh?
No,
Are we
it's
sort
what
of doing
it
an
is
approving the minutes
the
process?
The committee does not have the
It's
authority.
delegate, yep,
So it's
gotcha,
recommending
understand.
that the
Yep,
council do
understand.
this.
So,
Yeah.
yep.
So this is approving a bylaw to go out for public consultation, to form a hearings committee, conduct those hearings, and those are the members.
So this is a substantive vote, not just a procedural vote to
No.
approve the minutes, that's right. Okay, thank you.
All right, so we're going to use the board for this one. Okay, thank you. Next one, councillor O'Leary.
Yes, Your Worship, I'll move the item number 2, that the library censorship policy be deleted and key content be captured, etc.
Right, moved by councillor O'Leary. Who's seconding this one?
I'll
Councillor
second it.
King is seconding it. Any discussion on that? Okay, voting on the board. Right, thank you. And then the final one, public art,
Yes, I'll move, Your Worship.
seconded by
I'll second.
Deputy Mayor. Any discussion on this one? Right, we'll go to the board. Right, thank you. Did you get that? Yes, okay.
I hate it, I hate it.
Thank you very much. Someone's phone ringing, is it? No? All right, thank you, councillor O'Leary. Next item is item 10, which is the major events update report. And that will be Sean and Chad. Thank you, Chad, for coming along. So I think you can take the report as read. Is there any particular items you wish to add, Sean?
Well, not specifically, Your Worship. We do have two corrections, if I may. On page 27, item number 13, in the box there, the date for the South African Zimbabwe game should read Sunday the 15th of February,
Oh, yes.
14th.
Valentine's Day.
Oh.
And then on the item 59, section 59, page 29, second line down, we refer to NZTA. That should be NZTE. That's New Zealand Trade and Enterprise, so I apologise for those errors.
Oh, yes, that's right.
But otherwise, we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Right, thank you. Yes,
Thanks.
councillor Mallett.
Just another correction, I assume it needs to be correct. If you look at 17, you've got the wrong website there. You've got the stakeholder website is developed for the ICC Cricket World Cup, and that's FIFA stuff down there.
Correct.
You've got to be good to pick those ones up.
Right, any other questions on this? Councillor Mallett, a question?
Just on page 27, 19, 20, we talk about a whole lot of stuff that'll be done, family fun zone, etc. What are the costs for those sort of things? I assume they're all within the budget.
Yeah, it will be within budget. It's relatively low-cost activity. It's entertainment, performance groups, face painting, that type of activity. So,
Are there road closures involved?
not for the family fun zone.
Because that's here, eh?
So the road closures for both tournaments will happen around the venues, so around Sydney Park for the Cricket World Cup and around the stadium for the FIFA tournament.
And you talk about I can't remember the terminology, it's a walk, like the track to the
Fan
ground. Does that involve, is that just signage and a bit of plumage and stuff? There's no road
Fan
closures?
trail effectively
Fan trail, that's it, yeah.
runs from Garden Place through Centre Place, past the Transport Centre down to Sydney Park, so relatively easy route. The only road closure will be around the stadium itself, so Tristram Street we've proposed to be closed. for
And that
about-
road closure would be required because of the event anyway, not
Yes.
just because of the... Okay.
Okay, any other questions on this? No,
Just one, Your Worship, field days crossing over with the FIFA under-20s.
yes.
Accommodation is going to be quite an issue in the city, isn't it? Because I know field days, they have special hosting arrangements and all that sort of stuff.
Yep, they do. So what your question was, Councillor Toomey,
Yeah,
what is that going to be? How's it
how are
going
we
to be
going to
coping?
cope with the
Yeah.
influx of the people?
Yes.
With
I think
accommodation?
they're seeing it as a benefit to have the two together.
Oh,
but
yeah,
we've
great.
got some
Yeah,
comments
it
on
is.
that?
It presents some opportunities and some challenges.
Yep.
There are some challenges around traffic, in particular, and accommodation. Effectively, the accommodation is largely booked out over that period with field days anyway, so it might push people to be staying a little further away within the region potentially. But the opportunity is there in terms of being able to get field days visitors to attend the matches. And so we've got a game on the Thursday night of field days, which is a playoff game, a round of 16 match. And then the quarter final on the Sunday has been timed to start at 1 o'clock. So that will suit quite nicely for people leaving accommodation that morning and being able to stay in the city and attend that match and still be able to get home at a reasonable time.
Okay, good, thank you. Any others? Just have a comment to make, just a feedback in the public setting here that just independently I had the occasion to talk to a few people involved in these events around New Zealand, and unanimous feedback from 3 sources is that Chad, I'm singling you out, are outstanding. That's the feedback I've been getting, and that Hamilton is ahead of the game and doing an absolutely fantastic job, and other cities are wanting to know how we can do it so well, and a lot of them are speaking about you. So I just wanted to say that, all right? Because I think we've kind of learned how to do these really well, actually, really well. Okay, so this is a report we received. I'll move that. Seconded by Councillor Wilson. Right, all those in favour? Any against? Carried. Thanks very much.
Your
Yes.
Worship, if I could have your indulgence, I'd like to just put a word of thanks to Councillor Pascoe for agreeing to be our ambassador for both Cricket World Cup and for the FIFA events, and we look forward to you joining our team and working with us, and I have the baubles of office to present to you.
Okay.
Better put it on the right way.
Wear it on, put it on backwards.
Oh, lovely. All right, well done.
And I'm sure he'll be just as colourful as our previous ambassador.
Gosh,
I have to
yes.
grow a beard though.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very good. Right, next item, Councillor, this is on page 32, item 11, which is the sub-regional waters detail business case. So Blair is speaking to this. So Blair, any points you wanted to raise?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I'll make a few comments if I may. So in June 2014, Council resolved to develop a detailed business case in conjunction with Waikato and Waipa District Councils to look at collaboration of waters across the sub-region. Since that time, matters have progressed on the matters that were identified in that particular report, and in front of you today we have a range of things to be approved. I would note that both Waikato and Waipa have considered similar reports this week and have approved the resolutions and the matters contained in this particular report. In terms of the scope of the business case, from the report that we had in June, our council sought to have the enhanced shared services examined in detail. That has been included in the scope of the business case in Appendix 1. The other addition is the inclusion of stormwater. Back in June, it was seen as a waters and wastewater study. Through the discussions that we've had, we've identified that stormwater should be included as part of the evaluation. I guess it's a critical component of the waters business, and excluding that would have been a big gap in the evaluation of both enhanced shared services and the CCO. In terms of the cost, the report identifies that the cost for the 3 councils is a shared amount of $650,000, which we believe is a realistic budget to recommend, of which 50% would be the share allocated to Hamilton City Council. The cost represent the public process to identify both the consultant, which is identified as the Cranley Consortium, and the project team are very satisfied that the Cranley Consortium have the attributes and skills necessary to deliver a project of this complexity. There's also been a public process conducted for the independent project manager. That's the second cost identified of $97,000. That project will obviously be approved subject to the main substantive project being approved here in this report. The third major item of cost is other professional services, listed as $100,000. This represents a range of costs that we believe the project may incur, such as legal costs, information technology assessments, peer review of the project, communication strategy, or any other approved variations. Now, that money won't be expended without the approval of the Waters Governance Group, but we believe it's a realistic amount to have as an item in the project. The allocation of costs, you will see in the report there were two methodologies proposed, the Merrill Forum split or the cooperative nature split, and it's the cooperative nature split recognising the 50-25. The final element is the time frame of the project. I thought I should just touch on that. So in the report, the report identifies that the substantive work will commence after Christmas, reflecting the long-term plan commitments and the work involved in that in terms of the engineering and finance staff. The actual time frame is yet to be finalised, and that will be a matter to be discussed with the Waters Governance Group as a first priority. It's fair to say that the three councils recognise the urgency and the need to progress this work both collaboratively but as fast as possible, and we'll be searching for all opportunities to move this work along as quickly as possible. And I guess the timeframes indicated in this report are conservative, reflecting that we've yet to have those detailed discussions. But it is work that does need to be progressed with all three councils in terms of long-term plan commitments. But in saying that, there is work that can be done this side of Christmas, and we'll be looking to identify all of that practical work and get the consulting team working on that. Finally, the governance group listed in Appendix 2, we'll have two representatives on that group, and in Appendix 3, the project control group has two representatives appointed by the Chief Executive. Currently, that is myself and Chris Allen. So, Your Worship, I'm happy to take any questions on the report.
Okay. Councillors, questions? Councillor Pascoe.
I have two questions. The 50% split, Hamilton City, and 25% each for Waikato and Waipa. Is that a fair reflection in terms of perhaps the number of connections that each of the TA, obviously there's an arbitrary sort of estimate here, but are we paying only our share of the costs rather than a higher share of the costs than perhaps the other TAs might be paying?
If we were to go back to water connections or asset value, our share would be much higher than the 50%. Okay. So you'll see in the report that we show it was water connections, we'd be paying 69%. So if I look at the Merrill Forum and the Stage 1 and Stage 2 reports, we paid an allocation based on the 69%, our allocation was based on the water connections formula. This is a more favourable formula split.
Okay. And the second question is, and this is something that I might not have been used to in the past, but do we estimate in terms of our budget our own internal costs for participating in this study, or indeed in any study? That obviously there's your time, there's Chris Allen's time, there will be supporting staff time. Do we put in terms of not recovering that cost back from the group, but in terms of putting together our budget, do we normally include some of those costs to get an idea as to how much the project is actually going to cost us?
Generally the answer is no, but I do note that in the waters part of the business in Hamilton City Council, some parts of that business operate on a time cost basis by which their time must be allocated to certain projects, and so that will be a consideration for those staff, that they are the nature of their business, some of their time is allocated to particular projects. Thank you.
All right, Councillor Mellon.
Thanks, Your Worship. On page 38, Blair, Appendix 1, Scope of Work, Outputs of the Detailed Business Case, the project will deliver the following key outcomes. The brackets bit in the first bullet point, comments on the advantages and disadvantages of this model over a non-asset owning structure. What's an example of a non-asset owning structure? Someone's going to have to own the assets.
So a non-asset owning CCO would be the capacity model in the Wellington region, where the councils in the Wellington region have come together to form a waters CCO company, but it doesn't own the assets. So the reticulation assets are still owned by the individual councils. So
the CCO, what is the CCO?
CCO manages the water on behalf of the councils, but it doesn't have the ownership of all the assets. So, and you might not know, but what give examples of what managing the assets, managing. So it has responsibility to deliver the water services to the
billing.
Well,
if there is billing, if it's meters, I don't know.
Well, it depends on how they fund it, but certainly delivery of the capital works, the asset management planning, the forward thinking, the growth analysis. So it looks after Wellington's unusual in that it also, the regional council owns part of the water network as well, so it's an unusual situation. But if I look in our context, what it would mean would be that a company, theoretically a company would be established, but the councils would continue to own the assets individually. But this company would run the water business on behalf of the councils, but the assets would sit back with the councils. So this particular study here is examining a CCO in the instances where the assets and the management would all reside with the company. But what it's saying there is it needs to give some high-level commentary as to how that would sit vis-a-vis a non-asset owning entity.
Thank you.
Right, any other questions, anyone?
Look,
Yes.
I have one.
Yes, go.
Blair, I have to say that I'm staggered by the cost to do this analysis. And I need some help to understand why it's taking us nearly 650,000 to work out whether or not which of the two possible collaboration models is best. I mean, how complicated is that?
I think we've seen, it's a very good question, Councillor. To date, we've seen two reports which have at a high level identified that there is an opportunity here to be examined. This particular study is going to be detailed and comprehensive because it's going to provide a report, a final report that the three councils can rely on to make an important decision. I guess in the context of this particular activity here, you're talking about a business with assets in the hundreds, nearly $1 billion type capacity, capital expenditure program with the hundreds of millions of dollars. It's a substantial entity. It's complicated. The exercise will require a from the ground assessment of how we each conduct our waters businesses, our financial arrangements. It will be a very thorough piece of work across a number of aspects.
So can I ask a follow-up question? Are you saying that none of this work has been done before in the New Zealand context?
There has been work done before in the New Zealand context to look at the establishment of council-controlled organisations, to look at bringing together water and water collaboration, a number of different studies. But the purpose of this report is to look at it in a context of the Hamilton Waikato Waipa business and to provide a report that we can rely on that meets the Treasury Better Business Case standard of analysis that we can make a decision on.
So have we, as an organisation or as the Merrill Forum, gone to other councils and asked for copies of this other lot of robust work that enabled them to make decisions?
The project team and the consultants and the previous work has been informed by various other studies that have occurred around New Zealand. So that information we're aware of. But I think I come back to this report is needed to look at the context of the three councils. We need to understand, we can't take studies that have happened to other councils and apply that same principle to us. Our circumstances, we have our own particular water, wastewater, stormwater networks. We have our own particular growth circumstances. We have to examine our businesses in the context of our situation to arrive at the right conclusion.
Can you remind me how much we've spent so far in getting to where we're at?
I don't have the figures on me in terms of the Merrill Forum Stage 1 and Stage 2, but they were, obviously Stage 1 and Stage 2 was part of all the councils in the Waikato region looking at that. From memory, the Stage 1 report was about $50,000 to $60,000 across all the councils in the region.
Mm-hmm.
And I think from memory, the Stage 2 report was about $150,000 across all the councils in the Waikato region.
150,000.
But they were looking at the entire Waikato region, not in terms of the three councils.
And now 650. Okay. Good business to be in if you're in this consultancy business.
So you probably can't make a comment on that, Councillor Wilson, but I'm going to pick up, if I may, some of your questions around the funding. I'm looking at page 35. So I am interested to understand why there should be an independent project manager on this when there's going to be a governance group and a project group as well. So I'm not clear why you need another person.
So the independent role of the independent project manager is to ensure that the project meets and remains on track, delivers all the objectives of the overall study. It keeps that there are 3 councils and multiple staff from all those organisations to work with to get information. It's I guess a central coordination point to deliver the project on time and on budget. The governance group and the Waters Executive Group are there to provide governance and overall direction, but you do need an independent project manager or a project manager to keep the project on track.
Okay, so I can understand the logic of that, but I guess when you contract an organisation like Cranley, who have a very high reputation as, you know, deliverable, that's why they are successful. It is their job to do that. That's what you're contracting them to do, to deliver this project within this scope, within this time frame, within this budget. So why do they need looking after?
It's not necessarily looking after, it's looking after Cranley. It's also working and managing within the 3 councils to ensure that all councils are delivering the same outcomes to Cranley. And I think the process by which Cranley were appointed by was done in the full knowledge that there would be an independent project manager. So they have appropriately scaled back that portion of
They cut their cost according to that.
Correct.
Yeah, because I have concerns about that, I have to say, and whether that can't be managed internally with someone acting as a coordinator, effectively coordinating the gathering of information to make sure like with like, and then putting it together to send it off kind of stuff. I know I'm dumbing down the role slightly, but essentially it's the middleman.
Yes, it is, and I think the reality is, Your Worship, that needs to be done by a suitably qualified and senior person. We've identified that particular person through the process. If that was done by someone internally, there is still a cost to that. Someone would need to be.
Right,
If it wasn't
so what is the role of LAS? Then why can't LAS do this?
LAS have no role at all in terms of this.
No, but I'm asking why can't they? They're an organisation that's set up to manage shared services across the region.
LAS is merely it's an entity which is more of a clearinghouse. It has one employee being the chief executive.
Yep.
It would need to have someone engaged if that was the case.
Okay, so I've got a query on that amount. I'm interested in the other professional services, and I'm wanting to understand why a peer review is necessary. And I put that in the context of the other 2 reports that have been done, and done by eminently qualified people and organisations who've done a lot of the groundwork and gathered a lot of the information, particularly the last report, obviously. And again, in the context of, you know, the calibre of the consultant that you're recommending, Cranley. So why are we peer reviewing?
Look, I think that is there to provide the opportunity for peer review if the governance group deems that that's necessary. So my advice would be that would be something that the governance group would want to consider. Cranley do have their own independent peer review within their proposal, so this is there as an opportunity. If the governance group desires to have a further peer review, it can be met within that budget. That budget would, if that's not required, it wouldn't be spent. And therefore wouldn't.
So what portion of the 100,000 was allocated for peer review? And
we haven't specified the amount.
Well, in order to get to the 100,000, because the reason I'm sort of focusing on the money is because this is out of budget. So I am interested in understanding the costs here before I'm happy to approve something out of budget. So there must have been some guesstimates done on the 100,000 to work out what proportion would kind of be needed.
Yeah, look, I think it would be approximately 20 to 25,000, Your Worship.
Okay, all right. I'm just looking to at these other things in here, legal advice, information technology advice. So again, surely it's Cranley's job to do all that?
No, the IT and legal were specifically excluded as part of the final contract, so it was acknowledged that they would be costs that we would have to meet.
What IT? What is the IT?
So if the conclusion is, or the direction is to assess a CCO, that particular entity will need to have IT as a core component of a business, so there would need to be some high-level costing or assessment of what would be required in that instance.
Right, so this is money which is pretty much part of the actual project itself, the IT component. If we join all up, we're going to have some kind of IT system that manages this. And this is to get that advice.
Correct. If a new entity was established, it
Yes,
would need to.
understand that.
There are legal considerations, there are IT considerations. Yes, it's reflecting that we may need some independent advice to have a clear piece of information in the business case around that.
And then there's also, I guess, some contingency around if the project needs to be varied during the journey because things surface.
That's correct.
So what amount of the 100,000 have you allocated to that contingency fee?
That was approximately $30,000.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I have to say, I'm sort of breathing in hard here.
I think, Your Worship, the comfort that I can give council is that that professional service, other professional services would not be expended without the authorisation of the governance group.
So the councillors that we put on the governance group, they are going to be accountable to this council for decisions about spending that money.
That's correct. Noting that that's a governance group of the three councils, but
Yeah,
yes.
yes, that's right. The other question I have is time. And the reason I'm raising that is because there have been two very good reports done, and the last report is a comprehensive report. And in simple terms, this is a look at how you would, the pros and cons of creating a structure, this structure or that structure, right? So it's looking at the legal structure, the financial structure, asset transfer, business operations, right?
Engineering considerations.
Engineering considerations, right. So a lot of that is in the previous reports. I reread them last night, so a lot of that stuff's in there. So I'm really struggling with why this would take a year. Because it says here it will be available in the second half of 2015. So that can be in time past June, but a year.
Look, I think that time frame would I'd more read that around July, not December, in terms of the second half. Okay. But I think it's fair to say that the next piece of work will be to work with the Cranley team to really refine and to look for all opportunities to shorten that time frame as much as practicable. And I think the other thing I'd just comment, Your Worship, is the first two reports were good reports, but they were conducted to a certain level of analysis, and the intention of this particular report is to go to that very deep level of analysis to make sure that we have, or that the project examines all considerations in some detail for the three councils. So, yep. Yes, there is a detailed amount of work required.
Yep, no, I've got it right here, what the last report said about a business case. Yep. It's a short paragraph. The other question I then have is how, if this is something that the councils are then interested in, whether it be a shared service model or a CCO model, these sorts of decisions should be tested with the public during the long-term plan process. Otherwise, you then have the cost, time, etc. of going out in a separate process. So, what consideration has been given to ensuring that it marries up with the long-term plan process?
That has been something that's been discussed at length, but it's fair to say all three councils have realised that just will not line up with the timeframes of the long-term plan process. Particularly the staff and the finance and the engineering teams are heavily committed with the long-term plan, so to practically deliver a report and to have it available at a level that we would be comfortable with in time for the long-term plan is just not seen as practical.
So putting aside council internal resource challenges, how long a time frame did Cranley say in their expressions of interest paper to the group it would take them to do this? So taking away resourcing barriers that are created by councils, how long?
Their indications are that in Q2 of next year we can have some form of a report.
So that my understanding is that took into account internal resourcing challenges. Putting those out, because they wouldn't have been aware of those when they put their proposal forward. We're the ones setting the time frame.
Yeah, they were aware of the need to work collaboratively with the council, so and they were also aware that they wouldn't be able to start any work till post this decision process. So they always knew that it was going to be a November earliest start.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to understand here is that they put forward an application. This is an organisation who is used to delivering to specified timeframes within the private sector and doing it very well. Not at all challenging the capability, absolutely, would do a good job. This is about their ability to turn it around without the barriers of internal resource and challenges. And they must have given an indication, look, we can do this in a month, but it takes us 2 months.
Yes, and my recollection was it was start of Q2 2015.
Because I'm minded to include in the recommendation something that puts squeeze on the time frame.
And I think, Your Worship, if we do that, we just have to be mindful that the other two councils are also part of that process, and that would have to be something to be discussed with them.
So the Chief Executive might have a view on this, but I do feel, councillors, that there needs to be some more management of time frame here, because to be frank, I don't think, you know, the back half of next year is acceptable.
Through you, Your Worship, I will work with Blair as well as the representatives of other local authorities and Cranley to make sure that we've got the tightest practical timeline, and also identify what some of the constraints are from a staff point of view that potentially will impact on the delivery, because when it ultimately comes down to it, it is priorities and availability of time. And Blair is correct, the 10-year plan is a big priority, but there may well be optimal ways we can structure Cranley's work to ensure that that isn't an impedance for them getting on with it at a certain amount of time as well.
So thank you for that. But then I suppose that also timeliness is quite important, because, you know, if these things take too long or other things that this council deems as a higher priority get pushed, then it brings into question whether this is particular priority at this particular time. That's why I think it is well worthy of discussion. So I guess what I need to understand is there needs to be something in the recommendation that includes that requirement. And secondly, how will this council then know about that? I mean, other councils might have other views here, but I'm just trying to get to the hub of really what my concern is. And my other concern is about the budget. So you've given some, you know, adequate explanations. To be frank, I'm really struggling with a project manager role at 100,000. I really am. But you're saying that someone's got to coordinate the three councils, make sure like with like is provided, and because otherwise it goes on the other end, doesn't it? Cranley come back and say, well, we're out of scope now because we're doing all the work you said you would do. So
yes, and I can assure you that the project team are very focused on keeping that independent project cost as small as possible, and I think your comments are well noted, but we have to be realistic, and it is the assessment that role is required, and otherwise it would be a cost on Cranley.
And just to add further to that, should we not have a project manager, but there's no way we can shorten the time frame, because that project manager will be all about trying to ensure the project is effectively managed as well. So it's a critical in terms of trying to meet that time obligation as well.
Well, I'd certainly, to me, the priority is time. To me, that's the trade, time. I would trade cost for time, because I think timeliness in receiving this report is critical, because we've been discussing this for a long time. And I don't think it should take that long to do this. Do other councillors have a view or have some questions along this line? Is Councillor Gallagher?
Just give me the direction of travel with regard to the Waikato District Council, because they're doing the parallel exercise if they team up with Watercare Services. Is Cranley doing the same? Is that?
So Cranley have been appointed by Waikato District Council, and you'll see that in the report, at the cost of $55,000 to conduct their parallel piece of work.
Because that's an interesting issue, isn't it? Because you're going to pay 300, and those of you who believe in this direction of travel, I don't personally, but you're going to pay 350,000 to a consultant, and that consultant at another desk or is a parallel piece of work is also going to produce a piece of work that potentially is going to remove one of your partners. Because Waikato District, basically, you're paying 350,000 to a project, 300,000 to a project that actually is obviously gives Waikato District potentially two roads.
And
if they take the Auckland Road, Watercare Road, then one assumes they're not necessarily a partner with you.
And look, that's a decision for that council. I mean, they've leveraged the back of this particular contract to also do that work, and that's their decision. They are very much committed also, though, to this joint project, and they are there as a 25% funder.
But what I'm saying is, you don't surely spend this quantum of money unless we're fairly confident of an outcome.
Well, I think,
and how confident, you see, if they're not part of the new CCO, or possibly shared services model, where does that stack?
Look, I think that's something to be examined as part of this next stage. And Waikato, what Waikato are going to look at is obviously within the scope of their arrangements. Quite clearly, they've got some geographical proximity to Watercare, which is why they wanted to examine that. But you are quite correct. If ultimately Waikato chose to not be part of an entity that we and Waipa were part of, that would present a different outcome to the three councils. But the purpose of this study is to examine for the three of us the nature and shape of how we could collaborate in water. That's exactly the purpose of this.
So the study would also include the two-thirds outcome, the two-thirds of the pyramid.
It would need to contemplate that. We've got to be very conscious that the Watercare study, though, is not part of our remit in terms of, it's not part of what we're seeking.
How far the study itself, presumably if we go back to the original report, and the original report was clear around CCO limited liability company. CCO is a limited liability company setting up a separate office, taking over the ownership of the infrastructure, and then looking eventually at separate household billing. Obviously, there'll be further detail around that.
Yes.
And would there be further detail around how households are to be billed?
Not necessarily. It would identify that funding is a requirement of a CCO. It may identify a range of options, but it's not designed to go into that level of individual detail down to such some things as funding at the household level.
Okay, Councillor Pesco.
Yes, I'd just like to follow on from Councillor Gallagher's questions around Cranley, and it just concerns me in terms of the questions and the responses that I wonder if Cranley are in a conflict of interest here, that on one hand they're advising us as a group of three councils to go potentially, or recommend that we go potentially in a particular direction, and then they're separately advising one of those three partners, and they might perhaps recommend that they head off in a totally different path. And I just wonder how Cranley, if that is in their document, as to how they might manage that potential conflict of interest. And also add to that the comment that, I just wonder if we're getting value for money if we have the same organisation potentially providing a recommendation that is contrary to what the other two councils might ultimately want to have by having that third council involved in some sort of shared consortium.
Yes, that's a good observation. I think there are advantages by having Cranley providing both the work for both the councils, because I guess the three councils will have the benefit of understanding that work in terms of the Waikato analysis and how that feeds into our joint project. So I think that benefit probably outweighs a potential conflict. I mean, ultimately they will be providing advice, assessing different scenarios. The Waikato only scenario is a standalone scenario to the three council scenario, and I guess they could be seen as quite different. It may be that, and I guess I don't want to speak for Waikato, but it may be just a northern portion of the Waikato region, not the entire Waikato region, that is part of where their study concludes as well.
Right, are there any other questions for this? Yes, Councillor.
I just have a question. On page 32, you've put there the 75,000 we've got available for the actual budget, and the balance of 250,000 to be identified during this financial year from within existing budgets. What budgets is that taken out of, and what are we not going to be doing? It's a huge amount of money.
Yes, it is a large amount of money, and we have not identified those particular budgets this time, Councillor. So I guess the report has identified that a decision is needed this time, but we will work as an SLT team to identify those particular budgets, and they'll be reported back through the appropriate mechanisms to Finance Committee.
So you're saying then that would come back to the Finance Committee, and you would say we're going to sacrifice these budgets to do this work?
Yeah.
Is that what's going to happen?
Through you, Your Worship. So, like the Risk and Opportunities schedule, it's just a recording device, and it's used as a way of communicating to Council through the Finance Committee. We intend to use that as we go through, and from this point forward, all members of SLT will be looking in their own areas for opportunities for savings in particular budget lines and so forth. And as we identify those, and with confidence by the end of the financial year, we will balance that back down to a zero position. So that's what we've done in previous periods, and we'll continue to do that now. So SLT takes it seriously to ensure that we balance these things up.
I guess my point, my concern around that is there might be projects in there that we've signed off and said, look, we really want that to go ahead, and it doesn't go ahead and just gets...
Oh, yeah, I understand your question now.
Yeah.
If there is a decision to compromise something that's previously been a decision of Council, we won't do that without coming back through to the committee for approval of that.
Okay. Right, any other questions? Okay.
Oh, sorry, just a follow-up question, Your Worship. To a council resolution to go out and do a public tender for a consultant, but were there any other options that staff thought of to do this work? I mean, in-house through like the Mayor's raised LAS? Were there any other options considered?
No, we obviously went to the market to seek the appropriate consultants. There were 6 who responded. We did not assess that some options such as what you suggest there would have been practical. I mean, we needed to find the appropriate qualified independent experts who have done this type of work before, and Cranley fulfilled that criteria, or the Cranley Consortium, I should say.
Right. Who's going to move this? No. Councillor Mallett's going to move it? All right, and who wants to second it? And are there some matters that need to be picked up from the conversation we've had about getting some wording in about time frame? Who's going to second this?
Failed through want of a seconder.
No.
Councillor Pascoe is seconding it. Just, councillors, in terms of who would be appointed as our governance group members, I've talked to Councillor Pascoe and Councillor Mallett, and they've agreed that they would be happy to be on this governance group.
It's embarrassing, isn't it?
Oh, for God's sake. I know, I've just realised that, yes, unintentional, I think.
The issue of the stipend for the two...
Well, there's some good fees in it.
$250,000, you know where it's going?
No, there aren't, no. I think, councillors, because they are Chair and Deputy Chair of Finance, to be frank, and that seems entirely appropriate that they would be our representatives on it. So they would be included in that. Let me just ask a question then of them. I mean, see, how do you propose then that we pick up this concern about the time frame? What additional comfort can we have about that? Because there's got to be a sharpening of the pencil, in my view, and I think there's nods around the table about that.
So a recommendation that the Chief Executive works with the other local authorities in Cranley to look for opportunities to bring the time forward, and then to report that back to a subsequent council meeting on where that landed will be.
Right, so
my
like an
recommendation.
update.
An update to the council, yep.
Okay, and that would be in conjunction, our two people would also be part of being involved in that.
The update may be, Your Worship, through the key projects report to the Finance Committee may be the appropriate vehicle. I would envisage this becomes a key project, and that may be the more efficient mechanism to get the updates on.
Right, so that could form part of the resolution.
Yep. And just bearing in mind that the influence that the two representatives on the governance group can also bring to bear as well. Not that you need a recommendation on that, but they can also push to bring that time forward through from a governance perspective as well.
Yes, that's right. Councillor King, did you have a question?
Just a comment, you could have payment on completion, no progress payments, that would certainly get done pretty quickly.
That's right, it would get done very, very quickly, yes.
You wouldn't need to modify this.
Negotiate that, Blair?
I suggest that we've already gone out to not necessarily let the tender, but we've already been through an REOA process. So we have our terms as part of that process. The horse is potentially bolted in that respect.
Yes, but of course you hold back final until you're satisfied with the...
There is a portion on completion.
Retention, yes.
So, and that, Cranley knowing that the councils had to sign off to accept that, the councils can put a proviso about time frame that's got to be included in payment of the last payment, because they know going into this process that we get the final sign-off.
I think it's fair to say that Cranley are extremely committed to delivering a quality report. They understand the significance of this, and they also understand their reputation will be set by this. So,
It's time frame we're talking about, though, Blair. I don't think anyone's got any concern at all about capability. None. This is about time frame and the sharpened pencil on the money.
Yep.
The other comment I had was in Appendix 2, it says that the governance group should meet at least every 2 months. Maybe we should perhaps take a message back that we would like to get the meeting underway, as given that the other two TAs have made their decisions around this in the last week and appointed presumably their representatives, that we do this ASAP so that we actually get the momentum going.
That is the intention of the staff, that we'd like to get that governance group meeting as soon as possible. Yep.
Okay, so we're just going to get that additional, could you just get that wording right there for that additional? I'm assuming that Councillor Mallet and Pascoe, you're happy with some additional wording about the time frame?
Yes.
So F would now say councillors Pascoe and Mallet be appointed, would it?
Yes. Two to be included, that's where your names are being inserted.
Yes, so
Richard, that might just be better to be Waikato and Waipa.
Okay. We'll have a cup of tea after this, so we'll just finish.
And a nap. Nap time, remember? It was a little kid.
Who are the other representatives from the other two councils on the governance group?
So from Waipa, it's the Mayor and Councillor St Clair.
Yes.
And from Waikato, it is the Mayor and Councillor Hayes from the Tamaki
Wally
Hayes. Yes.
Yeah. And if you could just insert councillors Mallet and Pascoe in the brackets in F.
Councillor Mallet. The 18.
Got the two T's, well done.
That's not a formal report back, is it? That's just a CE update, or is that a formal council report on an agenda?
I'll probably
report
take
back?
advantage, like Blair suggested, in the key projects report.
Oh.
So, yeah, I'll leave that deliberately vague, so I will report back and I'll just choose the appropriate mechanism at the time.
So I think that we're making it clear that we're expecting an outcome from that, and also in the budget savings as well.
Yeah. So just in G, I think shorten the timetable. Megan?
Shorten the timetable.
Yeah.
Does the CE have to report back to the council? Couldn't he report back to the elected members? Do we need to hear about the shortening of the timetable? I mean,
I think the Mayor wants it official on the record that we've achieved it, so.
Okay. All right, so the movement second. Okay. Are there any, anyone wish to speak for or against? Yes, Councillor Gallagher.
Well, as you know, at the previous debate, I have opposed the direction of travel. I think I was invited to calm down then. I'm very calm and cold today. And the previous report talked all about the advantages of the three local authorities working together in terms of a CCO model. So we now land in a situation where the same consultant is investigating two options and obviously is working separately for the Waikato District Council because they're funding that piece. And I'm going to be very interested to see the content of that recommendation in terms of the option that Waikato has to go with Auckland Water Care Services. I believe that this is an inevitable journey to a CCO. A CCO which in terms of the original recommendation will take over 20% of this council's operation and will remove the control of the three waters from appropriate democratic and public service oversight. Because the original report around a CCO talks about the establishment of a limited liability company. That means in future, subject to legislation, you can invite other shareholders on board to buy in. That is potentially, in spite of denials, heading you eventually to a privatisation track. CCO would also, in terms of the original report, recommend separate headquarters and that all the liabilities and the assets of our three waters would be transferred to the CCO along with staff, separate headquarters. And then the real crunch comes that the CCO would then obviously individually bill individual households in terms of the consumers or the customers of the CCO entity. And the inevitable debate that must happen, as it happened in Auckland and elsewhere, is how do you charge for water, which of course takes us into a water meter situation down the track. I'm strongly of the view that what we have is not broken. We have an open, transparent, public service model of providing the three waters in this city that, in my view, has stood a good test of time. Can we improve conservation? Can we improve our network? Absolutely. Absolutely accept that. The one minor bonus, I guess, in this report is that we're only spending 50% on this piece of work. But as is always the case, we're looking at an entity of which 70%, I think, and I think just in terms of connections, I suspect the capital value will be higher as well. And as usual, Hamilton is, of course, accepting a lower governance oversight. So we have 70%, but we're going to have a less than a third of the governance. It's better than the spatial plan where we only have 1/15 of the say. My big worry, however, is I do think there is a danger that Auckland will actually, that Waikato will team up with Auckland, and I think that will severely potentially compromise where you're going on this. I don't necessarily oppose a shared service model, but as I stated previously, I believe in this case a CCO model will lead us down a certain path which I don't agree with.
Okay, Councillor Mallett.
Just first one is a procedural thing. We've been advised that there's going to be this $250,000 over budget spend. That's not been, that hasn't been approved or recorded anywhere. Does that have to be in the recommendation or somewhere? Because it's been reported to us, but we haven't said, yep, go ahead, guys, we've, thanks for telling us, and it's going to be monitored somewhere. Does that need to be?
Would you like that included?
Oh, I'm just not too sure if that's...
Because the council report clearly identifies that, and it's a matter of record, then, I mean,
I guess would we...
But if you want it in the resolution, I think...
Okay, well, I think it should be there to say, right, yes, that the council has been advised and has accepted that you're going to...
Where would you like that?
It's going to be managed, H. Council accepts...
Council notes.
Pardon?
Council notes.
Council notes, sorry, notes. The $250,000 overspend will be managed, will be reported and managed in the risks and opportunity report going forward. Or, no, I hate going forward. No, that'll just going forward's a made-up name.
I think what we're saying is that we, I think we're noting that $250,000 is unbudgeted and will be reported through the risks and opportunity report.
Yeah.
But it's also unbudgeted and expected to be met within the council's budget, because the council has a budget of which there are components, and that's what the risks and opportunities.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So I think that's the wording.
Yeah. And just on the substantive issue,
250,000 is unbudgeted.
I've got over. Oh, okay, unbudgeted.
And will be managed.
That's always the expectation. I mean, we use risk and opportunities as a transparency mechanism, and it may well be that if there's, in the past we've had items such as river slips and so forth beyond our control, whereby it's proven that we haven't been able to balance the books up.
I think sorry.
So that's what the technique is for.
I understand. I just thought there was protection for you guys to make it quite clear in the record that you have advised us that this is an overspend or an unbudgeted item, and that council has been advised, and that we are prepared to...
Yep, that's right. And through best endeavours, we will manage that.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So I think if we're going to note this, it's got to be recorded correctly, which is we note the $250,000 unbudgeted, not the so overspend and unbudgeted, and it will be managed within the council's budget, because that's what I'm agreeing to. I'm agreeing that it will be managed within the council's overall budget.
Yeah, I don't...
And reported through the risks and opportunities register.
So I think, Your Worship, the word overspend needs to be deleted, doesn't it?
It does. It's not correct.
You can be unbudgeted excess. I mean, unbudgeted doesn't necessarily mean a bad result. You can have unbudgeted revenue. So why
Put the word expenditure in there. So unbudgeted
expenditure? Okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, this report makes it clear that it will be managed within the existing council, overall council budget, and reported in the risks and opportunities.
So I wonder, after the word managed, we said within the council's existing overall budget.
Oh, now I understand what you mean. Sorry.
Yes, because that's my expectation. The budget is the budget.
Yep.
But I'm accepting there might be a few bits moved about. And I think that's what councillors understand it to be.
Through you, Your Worship, a question to Blair.
Sorry,
the intellectual property with the Waikato District Council's 55,000, does that belong entirely with the Waikato District Council, or is it shared with the group? In other words, there's two reports. One is shared between the three councils, but is the other report secret to Waikato District Council?
It is their report, They are paying for it. Whether they choose to keep that secret or not is something that I have not tested with them. But I guess it would be my expectation that that report would need to be a public report to be considered in conjunction with this particular report at the appropriate time. But that is a
Because I
decision for that.
suppose that comes back to the point that Councillor Pascoe made before. That is a worry to me, is the two reports. Is it evenly shared? Because I could see a situation where it's quite possible the report might encourage Waikato to go to Auckland, and then the other report says, well, the three of you need to work together. Quite a conflicting situation if that's how it evolves.
I mean, we're in a, we just tidied up this motion, so we're now in debate and Councillor Gallagher has spoken. So if you want to speak about that, then you can, and you can vote accordingly. I mean, there's questions we can't answer, I guess. The questions you're raising are ones we can't answer, our council can't answer.
And that, Your Worship, is the pity of it, because I do think that's important that we understand what happens to that 55,000 piece of work. Is it shared, or is it kept in isolation for that council to make its own decision, which potentially may not benefit the three councils that are working together and sharing the costs?
Your Worship, I think with the knowledge of that particular comment, it would be something that would be appropriate for us to advance and discuss at the governance group, specifically front on. I think I come back to the comment that having the same consultant doing this piece of work at the same time, there are benefits to all of us. And so I feel as though that would be an appropriate issue to table and discuss with the other three councils and to examine, because quite clearly, to Councillor Gallagher's point, if there was a piece of information coming out of the Waikato-only study, it would be of relevance to the three council study, and I think we would want to be transparent about that.
Just point of it.
Yes.
I mean, just
Is
being
it a
helpful.
question,
Do you need to put that as because obviously I would want the two members who are going on the governance team. You're happy that you'll pursue because you need all the information. Obviously,
I have no doubt that that's one of the concerns I will be taking to the governance
okay.
group.
Okay, so we're in debate now, so I've got Councillor Mallett, you were next on my list.
Yeah, thank you. Look, the overall picture here is we are looking, and I think it's a very good idea to go and look with our three neighbouring partners to see if there are efficiencies to be gained by working together collaboratively. And I know there's be some degree of cynicism, and perhaps you're right to being cynical, Martin, that one of the outcomes could be the status quo. And there's a whole lot of ranges all the way through. We've heard about a non-asset owning situation down in Wellington somewhere, which I've never heard of before. But there's all sorts of ranges. But just doing the work to see if there is, because at the moment you've got three arbitrarily, and you're already talking about moving boundaries and things like that. We've got three arbitrarily defined regions, each of them owning their own little water treatment plant, each of them with their own reticulation. It's just like the stadiums, you know. You get a situation where everyone wants a stadium in their little district. Well, I would be very surprised. I'm not going to preempt the outcome, but I'd be very surprised if there aren't significant savings to be had for all three regions with some degree of collaboration. And I think I hope this report will guide us that way.
Okay, Councillor King?
Can I ask the question that's come out of the debate?
Yep.
Is it legal to privatise water in New Zealand?
No, it's not.
Thank you.
Councillor Pascoe.
Yeah, I would just like to comment. I just get a little bit concerned, and with respect to Councillor Gallagher, I think he's drawing a number of conclusions and drawn on a number of assumptions that are yet to be explored by the working group. And I think with Councillor Mallett, I see this as an opportunity to see if we can work collaboratively with two of our neighbouring partners. I know that, well, what I've sensed in the 12 months that I've been on council, I don't think we have a burning desire or a need to develop, that we have a need to invest significantly in water, in the three waters. But I think as time progresses, we've got some massive funding requirements to keep up with the waters that will be needed for a growing city. And if we are already sitting in position of strength in collaboration with the two neighbouring partners, then I think there may well be some value in that in terms of those costs being shared, rather than us each individually going about building the infrastructure and the networks that are required to fund that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor King, did you want to debate? And I've got Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, I'm speaking in support of this motion. It's about looking at long-term efficiencies and cost savings. I'm all for paying for professional advice from the experts to get a report where we can then come back and analyse where we go from there. So,
Right, thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Worship. I'll be relatively brief. Look, I don't support this. I don't support this for a number of reasons. The first being, I think this is the beginning, well, in fact, midway through a journey of introducing water meters, and I think there is a real difference between privatisation, which I accept that under current legislation you can't do in this country, but that doesn't clearly mean we can't introduce water meters, and I think logically one of the conclusions from this process will be that that's inevitable, and I don't support that. But more importantly, and I think what I'm really concerned about is the fact that we're going to spend $705,000 between the three of us in pretty much discovering what I think we already know, and that's on top of the $200,000 we've already spent. So I guess Councillor Pascoe and Councillor Mallet, I hope you're right. I hope once you've spent nearly $1 million in this process, that somebody comes up with a great way of saving the three councils a whole lot of money, because it will have cost us a copious amount of money to have got there. And I wonder if, in fact, we don't already know pretty much the answers. So from my point of view, I don't support what I think I know is the inevitable outcome, but more importantly, I'm frustrated at the thought we'll spend $1 million putting forward a conclusion which I think we already know. So that's why I'm not supporting this.
Okay, any others? Just make a few comments. One of the biggest issues facing New Zealand is water and funding of water infrastructure, and let's not be under any illusions about that. We have spent the last couple of months looking at our own city and the challenges we face in funding water infrastructure. Local Government New Zealand released yesterday its report on water infrastructure across New Zealand and local authorities, which is a compelling read, and everyone should be reading that. So, you know, we're not alone in these issues. I think that it's a very good idea to get this work done, no question about that. I'm always into, you know, testing the costs and the time and all the rest of it, but the concept is a very good one, and I think we should go ahead and do it. What I'm looking for, however, is that it absolutely tests the various models that the scope allows, so that we get a very useful piece of work back to help us with some decisions that we have to make, which, to be frank, are decisions that are going to be for the betterment of the future of the city and the region. And that's why this piece of work is really very important. I don't share Councillor Gallagher's views about, you know, I guess a slippery slope or a journey somewhere, I'm not sure where, and I think there's been some huge leaps along that journey, if I could say so, Councillor Gallagher. Our job is to investigate ways that we can deliver more efficient, cost-effective services to a level that's absolutely accepted by our community, right? That's our job. And we are not doing our job if we don't take the time to investigate the options on very serious, important matters. And that's exactly what this is. And you cannot make a decision on those unless you have all of the information in front of you and all the options have been tested by the experts for us to consider. And that's why this process is important. The debate about where we go on the journey will be had when we get this report back. And as I've said, with all my questions, I want to see it soon. I don't want to see it next year, late next year. It's got to be done quicker so that we can get on and decide what we're going to do here for the betterment of our community. So that's what this is about. All right, so are we going to vote on this on the board, and then we're going to have a cup of tea?
Do you want to make that, add that? Make that aye, and then we go to opening tea. Make that aye on the resolution.
Carried, Your Worship, 9-2.
Right, thank you, and thank you, Blair and everyone, for all the work, and we look forward to hearing back from you very soon. And we're going to have a cup of tea, and we're going to have that until 4 o'clock. They're on now?
Yep.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is item 12, which is a report about the RMA consent matters. It's on page 42. So, Jason, this is a report from you, is it? Yes, it is.
It's a little odd, isn't it? Committee secretary.
All right, Brian's going to talk to it.
It's just part of the reporting back, where we have commissioners do resource consent hearings.
Right.
And what happens straight after, we always circulate the decisions to council. And it was to actually formally come as part of the resolution, so you could keep an eye on what's happening. And also for us, it's what we'll pick up in due course as we look at the effectiveness of the plan from a monitoring point of view. And we'll see if there's anything coming out of the commissioner's decisions that tells us about some of the policies are going wonky and effective.
Your Worship, I'll move the recommendation on page 42.
Thank you. I'll second. Deputy Mayor's seconding. All those in favour?
Aye.
Carried. Next item, item 13, page 44, is this is basically formally adopting the Board of Inquiry decision in relation to Ruakura, which is a requirement under the Act. So you can take the report as read. Are there any questions for Luke?
I'll move.
I'll second.
Okay, moved and seconded. You had a question, Councillor Gallagher?
Yes, I mean, obviously, in essence, this basically is, I assume, a formality. We're obligated, so it's not us debating what we think of a process and of a journey, and even of an outcome.
No.
If we voted against this, essentially, we'd be essentially, for us, legally, we'd be in a compromised position.
You'd be in contravention of the Act, and
So that answers your question, Councillor Gallagher.
Yes, but I'm just wondering if we have to do something.
yes,
Then there's no discretion. This is required of us.
yes, the Act compels the council.
We're compelled
to
to
adopt
do this.
the
Yeah, I
to adopt
think-
the
Point 9 spells that out.
Yes, it does. I think it's been asked. Right. So there is a recommendation on page 45. Moved. I'll move. Seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All those in favour?
Aye.
Any against? Okay, thank you. Right, that's the end of the public part of the meeting. So I'll move that we go into public excluded, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All those in favour? Any against? Carried. Thank you. We'll just wait while we're getting ourselves into public excluded.